A very good evening to you. You're watching Primetime News on News First. I'm Chaturanga Porachi.
A very good evening. I'm Rahna Farooq. Let's start off with a look at your headlines for tonight.
PMD says Venerable Yanasara Thero was not a member of the presidential delegation to Japan. Development of 406 acres of the Muthrajavilla marsh suspended. Agrarian Commissioner General investigates matter. University non-academic strike continues following failed talks. Open warrant issued for the arrest of Udyanga Veeratunga.
Taking a look at those stories in detail, the President's Media Division issuing a statement says Venerable Galagodathe Yanasara Thero was not a member of the Sri Lankan delegation that accompanied the President on his state visit to Japan. The statement adds news circulating on social media and websites stating that Venerable Thero was part of the Sri Lankan delegation is totally fictitious and false. The President's Media Division says Venerable Galagodathe Yanasara Thero had arrived in Japan on a personal visit before the commencement of the President's tour to Japan. The statement goes on to say that the Thero participated in a meeting which was organized by the Sri Lankan embassy in Japan to provide an opportunity to the Sri Lankan community in Japan to meet the President. It adds the Thero attended the event along with several monks of Buddhist temples in Japan for this meeting. The President's Media Division says using few photographs taken during that meeting, a news has been created that Venerable Galagodathe Yanasara Thero was a member of the delegation of the President on his state visit to Japan, and this news circulating on social media tools and websites are totally false.
Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa says the motion of no confidence against Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe will be moved next week. According to the BBC Sinhala service, Rajapaksa made this comment when he met with members of the Foreign Correspondents Association in Colombo today.
Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa had said the removal of the Prime Minister will be spearheaded by the MPs from the United National Party itself, and there is nothing left for him to do. The BBC Sinhala service, quoting the former president, said a substantial number of MPs belonging to the United National Party will either sign the motion or vote for it when the motion is taken up. Mahinda Rajapaksa believes Wickremesinghe would step down before the motion is moved and had smiled when asked if he aspires to become the Prime Minister. Rajapaksa has said he is not prepared to take over the government, adding that he will support a Prime Minister from the SLFP while remaining in the opposition. Mahinda Rajapaksa had also emphasized on his call for an immediate general election.
A very good evening. Now once again, talk about the motion of no confidence against the Prime Minister is making its circles in the political sphere. Now this topic died down as soon as the emergency situation was enforced across the country. Now what was the cause for the motion of no confidence to be moved against the Prime Minister? Now, at the local government elections in February, the underdog party, known as the Sri Lanka Podujana Party, or which went under the symbol of the flower bud, or Pohuttua, swept across the country, taking most of the local government bodies. Now, some of the local government bodies were previously strongholds of the United National Party. So, under the leadership of Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, the United National Party suffered its 30th election defeat. Now, following this humiliating situation, many of the grassroots level UN peers raised concerns and demanded there needs to be change, and the leadership of the United National Party needs to change. Now, one of the main reasons for the United National Party to suffer such a setback at the local government election was mainly the central bank treasury bond scam. You might recall time and time again, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe defended former central bank governor Arjuna Mahendran in Parliament, saying that he had done nothing wrong. However, at present, a case has been filed against several individuals, which include suspect number 1, former central bank governor Arjuna Mahendran, and a warrant has also been issued for his arrest by the 4th magistrate. Now let's also have a look at the conduct of several ministers who were serving under the leadership of Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. For example, Sagala Ratnayaka, he was the former Minister of Law and Order. He stepped down. And then before Sagala Ratnayaka, it was Tilak Marapana. He stepped down from the post of Minister of Law and Order because of the connections to avant-garde. You must also remember the criticism leveled against Lakshman Kuriyalla over the construction of the Central Expressway, and also criticism against Party General Secretary Minister Kabir Hashim. Then we come to another important individual wanted not only locally but internationally, Udayanga Weeratunga. The government sent a team to Dubai to bring back Udayanga Weeratunga, but they came back empty-handed. And right now, both Arjuna Mahendran, a close confidant of the Prime Minister, the leader of the United National Party, and then Udayanga Weeratunga, wanted by Sri Lankan courts with warrants on their arrest. These warrants were issued by the Sri Lankan courts very recently. Now, following the local government elections, following that humiliating defeat at the local government elections, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe made a rather interesting statement to the media. Let's have a listen to what he had to say.
24ක් එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයේ නායකත්වයේ දරලා තිනවා මේ ඔබතුමා හිතන්නේ නැද්ද දැන් කාලේ හරි කියලා අලුත් නායකත්වයට පක්ෂය බාර දෙන්න?
ඒ අලුත් නායකත්ව පරපුර බිහි කරන්න ඉන්නේ ඒකයි මම දැන් කිව්වේ. එතනින් ඊට පස්සේ
ඒ කියන්නේ කවද්ද ඔබතුමා එහෙම
මේ පක්ෂය දැන් ඒ වැඩකටු සාකච්ඡා කරලා අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ සාකච්ඡා කොහොමත් මේ මැතිවරණ කොමිසමට අර ලයිස්ට් එව්වයන් පස්සේ තමයි ක්‍රියාත්මක ඒකේ පැය 24න් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ පරිවර්තනය අපි කරගෙන යන්න.
A new layer of leadership? But where is this new layer of leadership? Now, after this discussion made its rounds and made headlines in Sri Lanka, then we saw gradually the incidents in Ampara and other areas making a rise and diverting attention away from the matter of the motion of no confidence, as well as creating a new tier of leadership within the United National Party. Now, UPFA parliamentarian Vasudeva Nanayakkara, speaking to Newsfirst, elaborated on the connections between those incidents that transpired over the recent weeks, the motion of no confidence, and the leadership of the United National Party. Let's have a listen.
These events always carried in its womb the conspiracy to suppress the hot events which could be threatening the people in power, namely the Prime Minister, who was facing a vote of no confidence, also who had become accountable about Arjuna Mahendran and his absence. The question of party and the leadership has become an issue, and it was a real serious situation for Ranil Wickremesinghe, the leader of the UNP, how he could resolve that question. There was a rebellion within. This communal or the religious clash helped him to at least temporarily shelve the question of the leadership issue and call upon his party to support him in order to bring about stability in the country. So behind the cover of bringing stability in the country, he was able to stabilize himself in the leadership.
Well, using an incident in society as an opportunity to cement one's position at the helm of the United National Party. That's just one. If you might remember, several years ago, there was a revolt within the United National Party, and when this was taking place, and this took place when Mahinda Rajapaksa was the president of the country. When this revolt was taking place, you might recall how the road to Sirikata was closed and then the entire road was carpeted. Now, many have come to understand this, in fact, took under mutual understanding between both these factions, and the people have already made a decision on that. Now, when the issue in Kanti arose, as MP Vasudeva Nanayakkara mentioned, it was part of a series of events. Now, when this issue arose, the main platform that came under criticism was social media. Was social media being used responsibly? Who was behind it? Who incited this incident? Today on Newsline, Newsfirst spoke to a cyber expert who elaborated on how all these incidents happened and how social media was used as a tool to provoke unwarranted incidents.
And hate speech particularly in Sinhala and what we call Singlish. Now, Singlish is using English characters. You're typing in Sinhala.
Right.
So these variations, Facebook has a difficulty understanding, because I've seen a lot of people saying, oh, but why can't just Facebook stop this? Facebook can't stop it simply because their automated processes that they use for us are not sufficient to pick up Sinhala hate speech. Facebook is a large company for us, one of the biggest companies in the tech world.
Right.
They can do this. We can set up a company, perhaps with the government backing, to actually hire moderators who are proficient in Sri Lankan Sinhalese, who are proficient in Singlish and other variations, and who can actually help them weed out this hate speech.
So
this is a profile that we picked up.
is it a fake profile?
It is, yes, I believe it's called a troll profile. It is a profile set up by proxy entities, and this is not just one profile. They will have maybe 50 to 100 profiles that they will control from a central location.
Right.
But on a social media, this would look as if there are 100 or 50 different profiles.
Right.
Upon further investigation, we noticed that, in fact, he was sharing information on how to make a petrol bomb.
Right.
And he was asking people to come to Kandy, to come to Digana, to participate in the violence. Then this is exactly what social media, the danger of social media. As far as we've gone, even in the fields of artificial intelligence, Faraz, machines can't understand satire. Machines cannot understand context. Machines cannot give, various other nuances of the language. Still, machines are not able to decipher, and this is the problem. From 6th and 7th of March, this is when the violence in Digana was at the highest.
Yes.
Obviously, it says how to make a petrol bomb. This was a search term that was used. And you can see around those 2 days, there is a spike in this search term. Why? Because around the central province and around certain provinces, this term was being used
on
average,
the search.
more than average. A Molotov cocktail. As you can see again, 6th and 7th, there's a spike in the data of Molotov cocktails.
So the need of the hour is to bring people like Asela Vaidyalankawa together, analyze these incidents, analyze these posts, and then expose everyone who was involved in these incidents and also who influenced them. As we mentioned earlier, the grassroots level UNPers are now calling for change, and over the recent days we've been having press conferences convened by these grassroots level UNPers demanding change and raising their concerns. What will happen to the country, and what will Sri Lanka face in the coming days, in the coming weeks, in the coming months, and even in the coming years? Stay with News First as we bring you the facts on everything that matters. And with that, we go in for a short commercial break.
Agrarian Services Commissioner has decided to halt the reclamation of land from an area that comes under the Muthurajavela Sanctuary and conduct an investigation. The investigation report is due to be presented to the President in the coming days.
Recently, Newsfirst reported on an incident where 406 acres of the Muthurajavela area was being reclaimed. Environmentalists charged that the Agrarian Services Department had granted approval to a private company to engage in this process.
The Agrarian Services Department has approved this private company's plan to reclaim this land spanning 406 acres, which is located inside the boundaries of the Muthurajavela Reserve, and construct an apartment complex. These approvals have been issued in an illegal manner.
Officials of the Agrarian Services Department who arrived at the location today inspected the land.
If these lands have been identified as paddy land, then it cannot be filled. We inspected this land. This is paddy land, and it is there in the paddy land registry as well. So such a land cannot be reclaimed. There is a law. We obtained a court order which prohibits the dumping of garbage, reclaiming the land, mining for sand and hunting on this area until the court case concludes. We got this court order on the 1st of November, yet they continue these activities. How can the Agrarian Services Department obtain money from a private company to reclaim this land when there is a court order in place? They use people connected to the underworld to transport earth to this location at night. They use backhoes to dig up the canals and reclaim this land. None of the government officials are taking any action. They are scared of these private companies. If we want to get approval for a 10 perch land to build a house, it would take us years to get it done. However, in this case, they have given away hundreds of acres of the Muthurajawala Reserve to a single person.
The Assistant Commissioner in charge of the Gampaha District Agrarian Services Department has provided the approval for the private company in question to carry on with their activities. However, the manager in charge of the Pamunagama area office had expressed her opposition to this decision. Today, she lodged a complaint with the Pamunagama police stating that the Assistant District Commissioner had threatened her to stay out of this issue.
As a practice, whenever we cannot ascertain whether a land has been classified as a paddy land, they make an inquiry from us. We then go through our paddy land registries and issue what we find. We have received the information in this regard from the Assistant Commissioner's office, and we also got a complaint from the Muthurajawala Protection Society that there is a court order and that there are paddy lands in this area. I immediately appointed a commission to investigate this. The President has also requested for a report in this regard. Our future course of action will be based on this report. A commission appointed by the Agrarian Services Commission cannot provide recommendations on this issue. According to the existing law, this purview falls under the Central Environmental Authority. Approval for such a project should be based on an environmental impact assessment.
The Airline Pilots Guild of Sri Lanka has written to the President seeking his urgent attention to the serious ongoing mismanagement of the troubled national carrier.
While welcoming the President's decision to appoint a commission of inquiry into the operation of the airline, the Guild has revealed that 3 newly leased narrow-body aircraft have been grounded due to the loss of a critical operational certification issued by the Civil Aviation Authority. The Civil Aviation Authority has stripped the airline of the Extended Twin Operations or the ETOP certification due to technical failures. The Guild says the loss of certification has resulted in flight cancellations and disruptions, adding further to the unprecedented losses suffered by the national carrier. The Airline Pilots Guild of Sri Lanka says it has no confidence in the CEO or the Board of Management to resolve the matter. The letter, which is also copied to the Prime Minister, Ministers, Treasury Secretary and Chairman of CORP, urges the President not to allow the present management to make changes to existing routes or organisation structure until a competent CEO and Board of Directors are appointed to the national carrier. Talks held to solve the issues faced by university non-academic staff have failed, and the University Trade Union Joint Committee has decided to continue their trade union action. Today is day 17 for the trade union action.
The University Trade Union Joint Committee was invited to the Finance Ministry today for a discussion on their issues. However, when they visited the ministry, the group was instructed to meet the PR advisor at the Prime Minister's office, J. Dadalage. The University Trade Union Joint Committee met with J. Dadalage and the talks to solve the matter had failed.
This issue was raised for more than a year. Today, after 17 days into the trade union action, we were invited for talks. However, we made our way here to cast aside any doubts. But we are not satisfied with the discussions.
This afternoon, the University Trade Union Joint Committee convened a special meeting at the University of Colombo.
We need a solution, and until we are given one, we will continue with this trade union action.
Today, the Students' Union at the University of Peradeniya demonstrated at the Galha Junction, pledging the support to the non-academic trade union action.
Lakshman Kiryala was in the government before, and he was tasked with enacting the government education policies. Now we have Kabir Hashim. It is in fact shameful to see they have failed to announce their stance before the media with regard to the issues faced by the non-academic staff.
The Government Surveyors Association staged a protest in Colombo today.
The trade union action was in protest against a contract being awarded by the government to a US firm in violation of tender procedure. The protest began at 8:30 this morning opposite the Fort railway station. Police took measures to temporarily close the Lotus Road as the protesters marched towards the Presidential Secretariat. Thereafter, the protesters marched towards Temple Trees through Slave Island with the objection of the police. Although the protesters were expecting to meet the Prime Minister, they did not get an opportunity. But public relations consultant of the Prime Minister, J. Dadallage, made a promise to the protesters in writing. We were hoping to meet Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe today, but we were informed that he wasn't in office. Public relations consultant to the Prime Minister, J. Dadallage, held discussions with us. During discussions, he clearly mentioned that he can't make a final decision on this issue. He said he will hold discussions with all parties on Monday and inform us in writing on Wednesday.
On to more local news, it was revealed last month that Cabinet had approved the procurement of 12 locomotives for the upcountry railway line from an American company at a cost of $4.056 million per unit. However, questions remain over the timing of the decision as well as the process behind it.
Newsfirst and several print media outlets first reported that Sri Lankan Railways plans to import 12 7FDL diesel engines from General Electric or GE for use in the upcountry service line back in March 2017. We also reported that when the tenders were opened for the supply of locomotives in July 2016, 8 companies placed their bids for the project.
There have been issues in Sri Lanka Railways when importing locomotives and engines. Earlier we called on officials not to import low quality equipment from India because it would be a burden for us as well as the general tax-paying public. However, we have now received information that there is an agreement to be signed with a US company to import locomotives. Based on the information we have received, these locomotives are no longer used in America. They produce these low quality engines for export. We have received word that these engines in question catch fire spontaneously. Importing such engines will cause another massive loss to Sri Lankan Railways.
2 bids were shortlisted. However, the tender was eventually awarded to MS General Electric Company, even though the GE units are $10 million more than the other shortlisted bid. The bid process went through 2 technical evaluation committees. However, Sri Lanka Railways officials had only negotiated prices with GE. Earlier, Newsfirst revealed that several members of both technical evaluation committees engaged in GE-funded trip to Tibet in 2013, following a failed unsolicited bid by GE to supply locomotives for the same purpose back in 2012. The problems we have here, matters of this nature, matters that should be discussed in deep, and decisions that should be made with proper consultations, is being brought in at a time where there is a certain amount of political heat and when there is a political debate. All at once, the Cabinet has granted approval for these engines to be purchased from this company. This is a big problem. We request the President to intervene. The money belongs to the people.
The Colombo Fort Magistrate today issued an open warrant for the immediate arrest of former Sri Lankan ambassador to Russia, Udayanga Weeratunga.
The case filed over the purchase of MiG fighter aircraft for the Sri Lanka Air Force was taken up before Fort Magistrate Lanka Jayawartna today. Former Sri Lankan ambassador to Russia, Udayanga Weeratunga, was named a suspect in this case for embezzling millions through the deal. The Police Financial Crimes Investigations Division requested court to issue the open warrant in English so it can be served via Interpol. The police FCID requested court to name 5 Ukrainian residents and a Ukrainian enterprise as suspects in the case and issue notice on them. The magistrate ordered the FCID to produce a report in court proving the crimes the 5 people and the Ukrainian enterprise had allegedly committed. The case will be taken up again on the 26th.
The Indian High Commissioner has echoed India's readiness to support Sri Lanka during any time of need.
Foreign policy priorities of countries could evolve over time. There may be new actors, new friends. However, India-Sri Lanka relations are unique and stand on its own footing. India will continue to be a net provider of security in the Indian Ocean region. We have always been the first responder in humanitarian assistance and disaster relief operations in the region. You can count on our support whenever you need us. And we are confident that Sri Lanka would respond with equal quickness when we need help.
The High Commissioner was speaking at the inauguration of a series of degree programs at the General Sir John Kotalawala Defence University.
Sri Lanka Print 2018 exhibition under the theme Going Global began in Colombo today. The exhibition will continue until the 18th of this month.
Printing techniques, emerging technology and global benchmarks coupled with standards will be highlighted throughout the event.
I would like to recommend to government that we should have a tax system where we can incentivize the private sector which wants to invest in modern technology. In the areas where we can expand very fast, we must have a taxation policy which is favorable to them. Unfortunately, most of our taxation systems are where we tax the most successful people. People who have worked hard, when others go back to work, go from work at 4:30, the private sector is going on working till late in the evening. They spend their time on this, they develop it, and I think the tax structure must be adjusted so that we incentivize all those who work hard.
Minister Sajith Premadasa says the government will begin issuing school uniform materials once again next year instead of vouchers.
The minister was present at an event to donate a bus to the Hambantota Primary School. The 3.5 million rupee bus was donated to the school based on a request made by UNP Deputy Leader Minister Sajith Premadasa. The minister also took the opportunity to take a test drive on the bus. It was my late father that first began issuing materials for school uniforms to the students. Recently, instead of this, they changed to a system of issuing vouchers or coupons. When this decision was being made, I was of the stance that we should provide uniforms to the students. From next year, just like former President Ranasinghe Premadasa did, we will begin issuing school uniforms.
Here's a look at tonight's illustrated news by cartoonist Asanka Laduahetti. And that's the wrap for Primetime News. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Rahna Farooq.
I'm Satyanan Kapwarachi. To discuss the direction of the economy in the wake of unrest, political uncertainty and the IMF staff level review ahead of the 5th tranche, stay tuned to Newsfirst Review 360 follows with a discussion with former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. W.A. Vijayawardena. Thank you very much for watching. Good night.
Уважаемые граждане России, голосование на выборах президента Российской Федерации состоится в Шри-Ланке 18 марта 2018 года с 8 часов утра до 8 часов вечера на избирательном участке номер 8338, расположенном в посольстве России в Коломбо по адресу 404 Баудалока Мавата, Коломбо 7. Приглашаем принять участие в голосовании.